Hi guys, this video is about how you can increase your blood circulation or the blood flow to an injured area to help the healing process. And I'll explain to you in a minute why you may want to do that. So my name is Maryke. I'm one of the physiotherapists from sportsinjuryphysio.com, where you can get online physiotherapy assessment as well as treatment of your injuries. So have a look at the description of this video if you want a link to our website. Okay, so what's the deal with increased blood flow and healing process? Now, let me give you a bit of background for the reason I'm making this video. So I'm often contacted by people saying, oh, I've injured this, I've been applying heat to help the healing process so I can increase the blood circulation and get things to heal more quickly. Now, I want you to be careful with that, because actually if you're going to increase the blood flow to an injured area within the first day or two, you could actually make your injury worse. Because especially if there's a bit of bleeding inside and you then increase the blood flow dramatically, you may actually cause the bleeding to be worse, and then that creates pressure that then causes further injury. So you need to make sure at what stage of healing you are and whether you really want increased circulation above the normal for that area. Now, second, there's a few things that people do. So the reason we want increased circulation and why circulation is good for an injury is because it delivers oxygen, it delivers all the nutrients you need for healing. It also gets rid of all the toxins and stuff. So it is useful to have good circulation. But I'm also going to make a point or a statement with regards to, there's a difference between having good normal circulation and trying to get increased circulation above the norm and having too little circulation. So reduced circulation is really not a good thing. And it's often when you keep a body part totally still, don't move it, immobilize it, then you tend to have reduced circulation. So a good example of that is you've injured some part of your leg and you're spending hours and hours in the day sitting and working on a laptop where there's no movement. So I would argue that part, at that point, the injury will be a little bit starved of nutrients and oxygen and things. Now, normal circulation is just that there's enough blood flow coming to the area. So your tissue can only take or absorb oxygen and nutrients and things at a certain level. And having super increased circulation above that won't necessarily make that big a difference. It needs to be just at a normal level. Okay. Now there are different things that people do to try and increase their circulation to an injury site. One of the most common ones is when I'm emailed by somebody saying, or message saying, oh, I've injured myself and I've been applying heat to that area. And often it's with relation to tendons that they tend to message that, especially because it's been quite well publicized that a normal tendon doesn't have good blood supply. And it's part of the reason that's being blamed for its slow healing process. But to be honest, I think it's a little bit more complex than just not good blood supply, because tendons are also made up mostly of collagen. So collagen fibers takes much longer to actually regenerate and form new fibers and stronger fibers than muscle fibers, for instance. So while circulation may play a role, we don't know for certain, it may also be to do with the type of cell that's in that structure. But now, putting heat on an injured area, is it a good idea? Will it increase your circulation? To be honest, not by very much and not for a very long time. The reason for this is our body and our cells has an optimal temperature where they function best. And if the body realizes that there's something really hot in an area that can potentially cause that area to overheat and then cause injury, it will do its best to regulate the temperature there to keep it within that good range that it knows the cells function at its best. So if you're putting heat on there, yes, you can feel the skin and things heating up and it'll start feeling hot. But often it's just actually the skin and the fat layer underneath there. And the blood circulation to the skin increases massively, and you can see that because it turns red. But because it's so efficient, it's carrying the heat away. So you're not really getting a heating effect and an increased circulation effect lower down. Also, if you're going to keep it on there for a long time, you actually could make the tissue too hot, that you then in the end up with a situation where the cells are now at a temperature where they can't function at its best. So then you're having the opposite effect. So putting heat on an injured area is not the best way to increase the blood supply and get more oxygen and food and stuff to that area. Also, by the way, if you increase the heat to an area or get it hotter, you often need more energy and things to actually maintain that body structure, that it's healthy. So you may end up increasing the demand of that area at the same time that you increase the circulation. Then another method that people use is contrast therapy of hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. And yeah, definitely it can create a difference and create a bit more circulation. But again, even the effects of cold is only often skin deep, or at least just past the layer of fat. Because again, the body knows that if you're going to cool that area too much, you're going to start getting into the ranges of temperature where the cells and things don't function that well. So it won't allow it to get that cold. So now it sends blood to that area. So, but it's again, blood to the superficial area because that's where the cold is happening. It's not blood to the lower deep down areas because that's not where it's being cooled at the moment. It's trying its best not to have that cooled at the moment. So contrast therapy, yep. And I mean, that works quite well for swelling and stuff. But it's not because of the deep effect. Remember, swelling and the fluid from swelling gets taken away by the lymph system, and that's just a few millimeters under the skin. So it's a very superficial effect that you get from that. Okay, so those are the first two that people often use, and in my opinion, it's not that useful to increase circulation. So what can we use? What is useful? Well, the first thing is just movement. As soon as you actively move a body part, you increase the circulation to that body part. And if we think of things like joints, if you've injured a joint, you've got to think further than just blood circulation. Joints need movement to get fluid in and out of them because they don't actually have arteries or veins going into them. So if you want circulation in a joint to be better, movement is the top thing to do. And movement comes in different forms, and it will depend on your injury what type of movement is right for you at that point. But usually a little bit of movement is good, but if your injury can stomach it, little bits of movement often through the day is better because you'll keep that circulation up then during the day. And also if you can get extended periods of movement, then that's even better. So practical example, sprained SIJ joint that I had a while ago. Getting up every now and again while I was working, moving, made it feel more comfortable and made me more comfortable. But then if I went for extended walk, slow walk, but for 20 minutes, nice slow, it was a massively different effect that I had. And I felt less stiff and things for hours after that, compared to if I just went for a little bit of movement in the house. So that's the first thing that does improve blood circulation. Now, the other thing that really even works better than that is if we think especially of muscles and tendons, is if you could contract that injured body part. So we're thinking muscle contraction. And of course, this will depend on your stage of injury, what type of movements you do. But if you can use a muscle while you're doing that movement, then you will increase the blood flow to that more dramatically at that point, and it will stay increased for much longer after you already stopped the movement. So you're getting a much better effect from that. So for injury rehab, I tend to find that a combination of everything works well. So doing little bits of movement through the day that maybe uses that muscle or tendon in a way, but it doesn't isolate it. But then also doing a little bit of stuff in the day that actually isolates that injured body part. But of course, according to the grade of your injury at that point, that works the best. Okay, so in summary, hot, contrast, hot, cold, not really useful, mainly increases blood supply to the skin and very shallow underneath that. But if you can move, and especially if you can contract the muscle that's injured or the muscle that attaches to the tendon that's injured, or if it's a joint, if you can involve that in the movement very gently, that's going to improve your circulation a lot better or more. Good. Let me know if you've got any questions. And if you would like some more help with your own injury, you're welcome to consult one of us via video call. The link to the website is in the description of this video. Take care.